Hello, welcome to Deleted Scenes. My name's Matt Holmes. I am the senior minister here at Turner Christian Church. And normally I would have my illustrious co hosts with me, our associate ministers, Jack Colby and Rachel White, but they are each on their own vacations. I got to take some time off last week. They're going to take some time off this week. And so this week I am doing Deleted Scenes all by myself, which is a bit of a callback to how Deleted Scenes started before we had either of them on staff. And it was just me talking to the webcam on my computer. My, how far we've come. Yeah, so I'm excited to be with you today on the Facebooks as well as the YouTubes, which is one of the ways we've progressed since it was just me on this. And we're going to be talking about a couple of questions that were submitted to us as part of our What Does the Bible Say About course. And now that I've verified that the sound is working, I'm going to take these off because it actually makes me talk slower, which is weird. Okay, so we've received some questions about for this What Does the Bible Say About topic that are kind of connected. And I thought that since it's just me talking as opposed to three of us having a conversation, that would give me that would mean we could do a couple of topics and get through them in one episode. And so the two that I picked are we had a question about cremation and we had a question about baptism for the dead. And so we're going to talk about both of those things. And if you have any questions and you're watching this live, you can go ahead and put those in the comments. I am doing my best to monitor both YouTube and Facebook. I do have both up. And so hopefully I'll be able to see those. And if you watch this later and you have a question, feel free to comment it afterward and we'll be able to comment back to you. We just obviously won't be able to talk about it in the video. But that's the whole point of this, is to give you a conversation where you can hear some things a bit more off the cuff about the Bible and what it really says about certain subjects. So the first one we are going to talk about is baptism for the dead. Now, Mormonism main place have to be baptized, but it has gone into the then into some controversy, specifically First Corinthians 15, otherwise, Paul writes, what will they do who are being baptized into the dead? If the dead are not raised again, why are they baptized? It's one of those places what back? there are a few different interpretations. One more that's interesting. This gets us into baptism is not a we may talk about this is actually it's a word in that and it means to dunk or submerge. And the reason why they invented the word baptism in English is because by the time they started translating the Bible in English, people already started sprinkling baptism. And obviously that they needed a word for that practice. That but there are actually a few places in that. And so there are places like word baptism Pharisees have six some very some some so another possibility that all of these so the first thing is we need to not if the Bible wants something, God wants something talk about it a lot. People want to sacrifice incredible. So frequently discussed that scripture writers but when Paul mentioned that once it can't build because if Paul thought or the church would save but he didn't. Another thing to keep in mind is that keep the main Paul isn't necessarily saying that people are right or that yeah, he's simply and that he's using that as part of the argument. And so it's we need to leave that open as to whether Paul is actually saying a good thing. Now I found it really interesting that the people that I read on this principle, or I've read some articles and stuff about this verse, and they were very quick to use that argument. When there are other places that I would also use those arguments that I don't think they would. So we also have to be fair in the way we apply it. That even if there are things we want to build that on, you have to remember it's only mentioned once or twice. It's not a big deal, or it's not something you can hold up and build a whole doctrine. But that leads us to the question. This is actually going to link us to this, which is why is in order to understand this, we have to understand what is the point that Paul is making. And in Exodus or in 1 Corinthians 15, Paul is talking about the fact who deny the resurrection of Christ. And he's talking about why the resurrection of Jesus Christ is important. And ultimately, he's connecting the resurrection, or I'm sorry, they're not denying the resurrection of Christ. They're denying the resurrection of human beings. Wait, I'm mixing this. Okay. Verse 12. If Christ is proclaimed as raised from the dead, how can some of you say there is no resurrection? Okay, they're denying the resurrection of Christ. And Paul is talking about how central the resurrection is to Christian standing. And he's made this argument about how Jesus' resurrection equals hope for our life. And then he says, he makes a argument about what Jesus' resurrection means. And then in verse 29, otherwise, what will they do who are being baptized for the dead? If the dead are not raised at all, then why are people baptized? Why are we in danger every hour? I face death every day, as surely as I may boast about you, brothers and sisters, in Christ the Lord. If I fought while decent Ephesus is a mere man, what good will it do me? If the dead are not raised, let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. So the whole point that we know about this practice of that type of baptism was it was something to do with the state of the body that and their eternity. They were doing something that was meant to affect the eternal fate of that person. That was meant, and specifically, was meant to prepare them. And so what Paul is saying is this practice, whatever it was, it doesn't make sense if we don't understand. Why are we doing this? Why, why am I doing this? And that leads to the conversation. So someone asked what does that mean? And I mentioned that the way that this what's the issue? And I but do think why. So because for most of us, we're doing how there's how but that is the most yes, 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 I don't that's to say I don't I'm not 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 at all. It's do whatever you want. I joke concept. That that I don't mean it's like wrong, bad, still simply saying it's not the biblical perspective is not in fact there's a couple things. Number one, you can see the way the Bible is constantly and I in Genesis when Abraham brings his wife Sarah when Jesus Lazarus not Lazarus but Lazarus and when they talk about Jesus they talk about going to Mary says I don't know where he is not his body because there was a very person still body was this is really people talk about oh, whoa. How long ago did that happen? Okay, I'm going to keep going. I'm glad I checked Facebook where Debbie said that the sound is really light. Interesting. Okay. So what we're talking about now is the fact that the Bible. I don't know how much to recap, so I'll try and recap quickly. Um, Sorry, the sound is kind of distracting. So one of the reasons why it might surprise people that we're talking about cremation is because our attitude seems to be, well, it doesn't matter what happens to my body. I'm not there. I'm not in it. I've moved on. I'm present with the Lord. And so it doesn't matter. Well, that's not actually what the Bible says. That's not how the Bible talks about death or dead bodies. And you can find numerous references in the Bible where it talks about a person who is dead as it doesn't say Lazarus's body was in the tomb for 4 days. It says Lazarus was in the body for 4 days. And Mary talks about how she thinks someone has moved Jesus from the tomb, not that they've moved his body. Now, there are places where they specifically talk about the body, but there are also places where it talks about the body as being the person. And part of this is we need to untangle some things that have gotten mixed up over time. And mainly it's the meaning of the word soul. In fact, we did an entire sermon on this. Oh man, must have been 100 years ago, right before COVID. Or maybe it might have even been the very first COVID sermon, the very first sermon that we did remotely. But we talked about the fact that the word for here, I'm going to do it this way. Okay, the word for soul is nephesh. It means throat, and it actually refers to your body. It refers to your whole body, and so it actually went in. We did talk about this recently. Jack talked about this in Genesis 1. The living creatures are actually living nefeshes, living souls. And in the Old Testament, a human being is a body that is filled with the Spirit of God. But there is some sense that you are your body. Like there's also this idea that part of you, when you die, part of you leaves and descends into the underworld. And so there is, in your dead body, you do have a spirit that is separate from your body, but that spirit is not you. It's like you exist in your body and your spirit, and it's only when those are together that you are really whole. In fact, that's actually the point that Paul is making in 1 Corinthians 15. Here's the link up, is that Paul is very specifically talking about the resurrection of the dead. I remember reading a book by N.T. Wright called Surprised by Hope, where he makes this point that it was so obvious that it never really occurred to me. When I thought of resurrection, I was thinking of, living eternally in heaven as a spirit with God. But that's not resurrection. Resurrection is coming back to life, right? It's being restored to life, to physical existence. Now, Paul does say that our resurrection bodies will be in some way different, but they are still resurrection bodies. We are still embodied people. We still exist as physical beings, and as long as whenever we're not physical, we are not whole. And so the biblical view is that your body is an essential part of you without which you're not complete, and that the hope of resurrection is that you will be put completely back together. Now, one of the worries that people have had in the past, that's one of the reasons why burial has been so important in Christianity, is as an expression of that hope that this body is going to wake back up. They're asleep, but God's going to wake them back up. There isn't really this belief, and I don't know that there ever has been a belief that if you are burned, then you can't be resurrected. Obviously, God can put a burned body back together the same way he can a decayed body. So there's no sense that there's something wrong with cremation, and I do not want to make anyone think that they did a wrong thing by being cremated or that they shouldn't be cremated. There is nothing in the Bible that goes against cremation. There just flat out isn't. But what I don't want you to do, what isn't biblical, is to think that my body doesn't matter, that my body's not part of me, my body doesn't matter. That actually is a way to heresy in a couple places. That's one of the things that the Corinthians struggle with, is they think, hey, the body is going to get destroyed, so what does it matter what I do with it? And that's not true. Paul has to be very clear with them that the body does matter. And I think it gives shape to our hope when we say that, our hope is to come back here. I have the same problem with the statement, this world is not my home, I'm just passing through. Actually, that's more what we should say in heaven, according to the Bible. When we get to heaven, after we die, that's when we would say, heaven is not my home, I'm just passing through, because the goal is to come back. Now, the goal is to come back to a new earth. But ultimately, God's plan for us is for us to end up right back where we started, in a perfect creation, in perfect harmony with each other and with creation and with God, restored back to what the garden was always supposed to be. And so, again, just to be very clear, there's nothing wrong with cremation. There's absolutely nothing wrong with cremation. And there's nothing, there just isn't anything wrong with it. What we shouldn't do is just be casual about our bodies and think, oh, it doesn't matter, because the way we handle death and the way we recognize death and the way we process mourning is a big signal to the world about what we believe about death and about the hope of resurrection. And so we shouldn't be flippant or casual about it. And there is something really meaningful about being intentional in the way we mourn and the way we say goodbye. And that can be done with a body in a casket. It can be done with an urn. It can be done in the absence of a body. And you could do any of those options in the wrong way. You could say, hey, throw me in a casket and put me in the ground because I don't care what happens to me because it's not me. And that would still be off base. One of the things that we've lost the sense of, or not that we've lost it, but I think that we can recover and find real power in, is that the way we mark the events of life communicates a message to the world. The way we handle births, the way we handle weddings, the way we handle deaths, the way we handle those markers really communicates something to the world. And the last thing I would say on that, as we're thinking about the way we recognize, the way we mourn specifically, communicating something to the world, what I definitely don't want you to hear is that you're under some kind of pressure to not be sad in order to prove to the world that death isn't the end. That's not it. Please, when you mourn, be sad. When Jesus was at the tomb of Lazarus, he wept, even though he knew Lazarus was coming. He was going to bring Lazarus back to life in a minute. But we treat death we recognize that the impact that it has and the meaning that it has, and so that's what I think is important for us to remember when we decide how we're going to ask people to handle our bodies and how we're going to decide to do funerals and celebrations of life and all that thing, that those things do matter. Again, not to put pressure on people to do it the right way. There's amazing pressure from the world to do these things the right way, like to give birth the right way or to have the right kind of wedding. And I don't mean to add to that. I don't. I just mean to say these moments matter, and they can be powerful and they can be beautiful, and we should just be thoughtful in the way we handle them. This was a deeper subject than a lot of them, and also it sounds like the sound was not great for the first part. So those of you who stick with this video this far, thank you for sticking with us, and I will try and figure out what that issue was. I don't know what happened, but it seems to have been fine since. And I'm giving you a little bit of time to ask any remaining questions that you might have, but seeing none, I'm going to tell you that on Sunday, The next sermon is going to be about what the Bible says about grace. I'm really excited to talk about that topic. I'm glad that it was requested because I think there's a lot of really important things to say there that give us a major amount of peace, not just in our relationship with God, but in our relationships with others. And if I did accidentally give you any feeling of pressure of meeting certain expectations in the way you handle a funeral or a wedding or a birth, actually this sermon would be good to address the fact that we don't, there is freedom from those burdens of expectations. So next week, hopefully the whole team will be back, and we're looking forward to talking through another subject of what does the Bible say about. And so hopefully we'll see you then. Stay healthy, stay hopeful, and go in peace to love and serve the Lord.